introduce Mr. Deepak Bagla. We're extremely fortunate to have him with us here today. Mr. Deepak Bagla has a professional career of over 3 decades, starting with the World Bank in Washington, D.C., and then with Citibank, where he was for 18 years. In 2007, he joined private equity to start an India-dedicated fund for core infrastructure. Mr. Bagla is currently the CEO of Invest India, the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency, which is promoted by the Government of India. Invest India is also the execution agency for Government of India's Startup Initiative. So now I request Mr. Deepak Bagla to address us. Thank you.
Should I use this one? This? Good evening. Thank you for coming, really. You'll have to bear with me for 20 minutes, and I know especially when it's such a beautiful day outside. And excellency is complete Pied Piper, as you know. There's no one better we can have to represent India in this context. But as I said, 20 minutes is what I'll take. And what I thought I'll do with you is just share with you as to what is happening in India today. And apart from the fact that I'm just here only to tell you that how important your visit is for us and how we're looking forward to that. How many of you have visited India in the past 1 year? And how many of you will we see next week? That's excellent. By the way, Excellency, as you know, we are at about 42, 43 degrees Celsius in Delhi. And, well, our summer is... and our summer is quite like us as Indians. It's very warm and it's very intense. So, it'll be interesting to see you there, and we'll welcome you there. We will be there. What I thought I'd do is I mentioned to you, just take you through for a few slides, and then we'll have a Q&A session after that. But if I can make this work. You know, there's an interesting one on this one. So actually, this is a picture which was taken on the 1st of April. And this was a picture taken at night from a satellite. It just reflects what the Facebook connectivity at that night was in India. And these all little lights were the connections which it was drawing. The second interesting thing is the title of this presentation. So we actually carried out a competition as to what should be the title for an India presentation. And they were very interesting ones. You know, there was Reimagining India, New India. Jeff Bezos from Amazon wrote saying that it should be India Unlimited. They were all good, they all actually fit in. The reason why we picked up Transforming India for this presentation is because actually we had a senior US ambassador who had come into India, an ex-ambassador long ago, and what he mentioned last year was that it probably is the most unprecedented transformation ever in the free world. Just move it aside so the people at the side. Yes, that'd be great. So he was saying it's the most unprecedented transformation which has ever happened in the free world. And the reason why he said that is because, you know, the moment you have socio-economic and political and all 3 elements changing at a completely transformative pace, and by change, when he said unprecedented, it's termed in terms of both scale and the speed at which it is happening. And let me just take you through a few slides and I'll let you decide as to what you think should be the title of this presentation when you come. 205 billion, that's the FDI we got starting 14th April 2014 until the 1st of January this year. We close our financial year on March 31st. I think that figure will be anywhere around 220, 225. It's not yet out, but somewhere there. The interesting thing about that figure, and each of these numbers, by the way, has a story, so I will just bear with me on the first slide and then we'll move quickly. So from 2000 until 2017, India's got about 550 billion odd in foreign investment, FDI specifically. 50% of that, that is about 225, has come in the last 48 months. Now what's interesting of that? Of this 205, 92% came on what we call as the automatic route. It did not require approvals. India today is one of the most open economies on the planet, with private capital having the ability to play a role in each and every sector. And the other interesting aspect of that 205 is over 50% of it is greenfield investment. India today is the #1 greenfield FDI destination on the planet. And the interesting thing of greenfield is you have an investor which today is comfortable taking a long-term call in India. And the fact is, why is that happening? And I'll just take you around through this entire structure which we have. 7.4, 2.6, 4 trillion. 2.6 is our GDP today. In fact, we are the 6th largest GDP. By October, November, we will be the 5th largest GDP. In purchasing power terms, that is in dollar equivalent purchase terms, we are the 3rd largest GDP on the planet already. We are at about 8.5 to 9 trillion. There's a multiplication factor of anywhere between 3.5. That 2.6 trillion is going to be about 5 trillion by 2025. And let me tell you why I say that. The first trillion, so you know we got our independence in 1947. The first trillion took us 60 years. Our first trillion happened in April 2007. The second trillion took us 7 years. The third trillion will be taking us 5.5 years. You're seeing that base at which it is moving. So when we are 5 trillion in nominal terms in 2025, effectively we are $20 trillion, close to the size of the US economy today in purchasing power parity. That is the 2.6 trillion. The other interesting thing of that 2.6 trillion is that 2/3 of that 2.6 trillion is driven by domestic demand. So we are insulated by global fluctuations. I'll give you a figure. So 52 subsidiaries of global multinationals in India. And I took only those 52 subsidiaries which were listed. And I'm looking at a chart from 2012 to 2017. So while the global corporations, their parent corporations, the average profits were going down 4.4%. The local subsidiary profits went up by 30.6%. Let me give you one more instance about the magic of a partnership with India. We all know Suzuki. The global market cap of Suzuki, listed out of Japan, is $26 billion. Suzuki has a joint venture in India, Maruti Suzuki. Can you take a guess as what is the valuation of the joint venture in India? $41 billion. That's just one instance. That is what India is moving towards today. And that's 7.4%, the growth. We are the fastest, largest growing economy on the planet. Now, frankly, this story has just begun. India has 29 states. If I break it into, let's say, 3 buckets of 9 states each, or let's say an aircraft with 3 engines, that 7.4 figure is that aircraft being powered only by 1 engine. I today have only 9 states which are growing at 7.4% plus. The second engine is going to start firing in the next 24 months. And the third engine within the next 36 months. So frankly, this is that bottom end of that hockey stick, which you guys are very good at. This is that inflection point where India is at. And this is where the takeoff is starting, and this is actually, the game has only just begun. And when I say the 4 trillion consumer market, that is what is the purchasing power of India today. You know, we have a population of 1.3, as Excellency mentioned to you. You have a 1.5 billion figure there. That will be 1.5 billion by 2023. We'll be the largest human capital again on the planet. Now what's interesting is, 1 billion of those will be under the age of 35. At an average age of 29, we will be the youngest human capital all the way up to 2070. We'll have a workforce in excess of 850 million trained. human workforce. And you know where that 4 trillion market figure is coming from? So as per a study, and which was done by the top consulting firms, an Indian born in 2000 would be spending $245,000 in his or her lifetime. Multiply that by 1.5 billion. You get a number? That number, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of the Indian market. And let me give you another instance there, and I will repeat that later again, just to show you why that is happening. For the first time in the history of world economics and industry, a company got 100 million new customers in 180 days. This happened 24 months ago in India by a telecom company. At 1/6 the acquisition cost of a customer globally. That is what India is moving towards. And I take you to my last bucket there, which is 834 and 535. And why I put that bucket there is because that is to show you the importance of freedom in our country as a people. This is the largest celebration of the free world, of our democracy. Those numbers take us back to our last elections in 2014. 835 million registered voters, of which 535 million actually cast their franchise. 5,700 candidates for 543 seats of the parliament. 900,000 polling booths. 1,600 plus registered political parties, of which 464 actually participated in that election. And it was performed to a sigma 6x perfection. Repolling was in less than 0.1% of those polling booths. And that too because of bad weather. This is that country which lives for freedom. It's a part of our DNA. And what is interesting is, if I take you into the next election, and that is when I take you to transforming India, the first time voters in the next election, which is next year, we will have 167 million first-time voter. 97 million of those would be from a village in India. And 67 million of those would be women. Now, you know what is interesting, and why do I give you these figures? The first time, what has happened in the Indian thing and what is changing is that good economics is now becoming the center of good politics. This generation, this first-time generation, has the same ambitions and the same dreams as all of you. They want development, they want jobs, and they are open to the entire world. That is the change. So any policy change which is happening in India is driven bottom up. And that is what is now the strength and the permanence of this economy going forward. What I thought is I'll just share with you what has happened in this Make in India thing. You know, we are one of the most complex nations on the planet. A lot of you have been coming there, you've been trying to do business. And we really are amazing at the complexity we can create. Truly. I myself see that every day of my life. And what was happening is when this government came in, the primary objective was, how do we demystify and how do we simplify this entire effort? I've shown you that opportunity which is sitting there. You'll have a $10 trillion economy by 2030. That means in purchasing power terms, you're talking of a $35 to a $40 billion market. The entire objective of this entire exercise was, one, how do we demystify and simplify the system so you can access that market much easier? Two is, how do we bring India into the global supply chain? You know, typically, industry was about 15 to 17% of our economy. And the idea was, the moment we do this, how we can take it up to about a 25% number. And that's where the four pillars, the sectors, the processes, the infrastructure, and the mindset. The sectors is where we're coming up with the new FDI policy. And as I explained to you, it's now one of the most open economies. The processes is what I will speak of a little going forward. The infrastructure is what the government is focusing on. And the mindset is what I mentioned to you with the new generation coming into it. The interesting thing on this one, and why I say this lies the foundation of some of the interesting figures I gave to you. Remember I told you about that 100 million customers in 180 days? Why did that happen and how could that happen? In fact, I was just with the supply chain of a Chinese mobile maker the week before I came in. And they had brought in their entire supply chain into India, 52 of the suppliers. They got 36 million new customers in 30 months. It's a Chinese company coming into India for the first time. It's not even an Indian-based company. And where is that coming in from? If you look at these three pink verticals, that is what we call as the India stack. We have 1 billion people connected to a bank account. We have 1 billion people which have a unique identity number called the Aadhaar card. And if you're 1 billion people with mobile connections. You remember when I said 1.5 billion, I didn't say people, I said human capital. That is where the change is happening. This is what is creating that change. And I will speak about that a little more. But this India stack is one of the biggest things which has happened to India after we gave the word concept of zero. And that's what we had a professor coming in from Harvard about last month. And he said this India stack probably is the biggest game changer for the world, the corporate world. I will speak about the other things. But you know what is happening? The biggest focus in India today, as I said, is simplifying the procedures for you to be able to access it. So in the most, you have the ease of doing business rankings by the World Bank, which have been acknowledged as one of the best in the world. And even though we are saying that it's a jump from 42 to 100 in a period of 24 months, as for the World Bank, it is the most unprecedented jump ever. So for example, just to let you know, a company incorporation which used to take 10 to 15 days, you can get it done in 1 day, you can get environmental clearance in 190 days. But let me tell you what is happening behind this. You know, in the past 36 months, the central government and the state governments have done 15,000 procedural and regulatory reforms to be able to bring you that number. 15,000. And this process has only just begun. So that huge barrier to entry for a new entrant coming into India because of all the complexities is fast moving away. And that is where is the biggest thing which is happening. In fact, the World Economic Forum has the competitive index. The only country which has moved from a position from the 70s to the 30s in 24 months was India. The competitiveness of India is moving at that rapid rate. And that's what I could take you back to transforming India. This is a transformation which is unprecedented so far. All these lines, these are just actually which tell you which is the kind of money we require in the next 25 months. When you go to the website, you'll see each of these colors is a sector. And we have a total requirement of $4.8 trillion, which is what we will require in the next 5 years of investments for India to come in. This is an interesting one, if you look at it. And what you need to do is to keep matching. So let me start with e-commerce, and I won't go through all of them, but let me just pick up a few. You know, last week, Walmart bought into an e-commerce company in India called Flipkart. The valuation of Flipkart in 2013 was $1 billion. 48 months later, do you know what is the value which Walmart paid for Flipkart? Somebody said 17? 16? You know what is 16 is for 3/4 of the company. $20 billion is the valuation. From 1 billion in 2013 to 20 billion. Just think of the value addition. And where is that coming from? Remember that India stack? Remember those earlier numbers which I took you to? That is the transformation which is pushing it. And let me take you to the green parallel one. We have about 400 million people on the net in India today. We are the second largest country on the net. We are the largest, not yet on the net. The first 100 million took us 10 years, the second 100 million took us 3 years, the third 100 million took us a year. Every second, 3 new people are accessing the net in India. And you know what's interesting there? 2 of those 3 are from a village in India. That is what is changing population to human capital. We'll have 750 million people connected on the net by 2023. Over 450 million of them speaking in English and connecting in English. And another coming on. We have 22 regional languages, by the way, scheduled languages. So you can write a letter to the government in any of those 22 languages and you'll get a response. And most of them have a different script. It's not just English. Let me just pick up one more. Let me just pick up this, and I might touch it later, the smart cities. 10% of the world's population, ladies and gentlemen, lives in our villages. But you know what is happening? Every second, 30 people are moving from a village to a city in India. By the time I've spoken for 10 minutes, just imagine this entire room multiplied by 7 times, has already moved to a city and an urban township. India is now creating 100 new smart cities. These are brownfield, and every element of these cities is going to be smart. You can look at the traffic lights, you can look at road, construction, water, sewage, waste. Every element is open for investment. Because everything which is happening in these big changes tells you about the opportunity which sits there. I'll go through some of them a little later, so let me just run through it. Gosh, we need 110 million new houses in the next 5 years. We need 250 airports are being redone. You know, there is the 100 smart cities I've told you, the 5 new industrial corridors are coming up. I will touch up on them again. On the roads, we are doing about 35 kilometers a day. If I include the regional small roads, we are crossing more than 100 kilometers a day. We need to speed that up tremendously to at least 150 to 200 kilometers a day. We have 111 inland waterways. These are projects which are already ready. You guys are a master at this one. And you know, that is one of some of the most amazing investments. I was just going through it before I came here. The IRR on some of those investments is in excess of 76% on that inland waterways. These are just some of the opportunities. Just look at these airports. What we are also doing is redoing 500 railway stations, which are typically railway platforms, you know, are in the heart of the city. We are redoing them like in Aerocity. We just picked up some of the focus sectors because these were the sectors you were looking at in some ways. And I'll run through with them because I'll probably have more time for a Q&A session. But this is just to run through to give you what the opportunity is sitting there. You can have a look at it. The potential is in yellow on those ones. Completely off the charts. We, by the way, can email these presentations to you if you ever require them. So, more than happy to do that. Food processing. This one is a no-brainer. You know, we may be one of the largest producers of food and grains. Look at where we are processing levels are. Fruits and vegetables, 2%. Marine, 8%. Poultry, 6%. Only 35% of our milk. And you know what's interesting? So, Invest India, as Excellency mentioned to you, is just about 3.5 years old. We've done over 100,000 queries which have come into it. 47 sectors, 115 countries. The number one sector where I've got global queries is food processing. 1.5 billion, you remember that figure? $240,000 per person. That's going to food. Chemicals, obviously with the construction which we are doing. Interesting, I spoke to you about the US ambassador in his favorite speech. Very interesting comment, and you'll see, because you all have been coming there, that 70% of India of 2030 is yet to be constructed. It's actually a fact. You come to India, it's like a huge construction site. And it's going to continue that way. Electronics. This is a huge one which is coming. And you know, those little time circles, they're basically just showing you how the maturity levels are coming up. We are way behind on the maturity levels on some of the things. We're very good in the sales and marketing, but on fabrication you can't even see it because it's probably not coming up on the computer here, but it's a complete blank. This is an entire market which is open. And then it is open to the two of us together with this bond. Excellency mentioned, it is truly a special bond. Have you ever thought of a relationship 400 years old? And see how it would have gone together? The last time when we started this relationship, if you recollect, India had about a 25% market share in the global trade, somewhere in the 1700s. By the time we started 1900, we were down to 1%. That circle, as the circle of life we call it, is taking off again. This is a partnership which is there to take up with all the opportunity which is sitting there. These are the queries which I have got from here so far. And these are the sectors which give you an idea as to how this relationship in the past 36 months is working. In fact, the team is current. We have a special dedicated team within Invest India. And we have 26 active investment cases we are working on already from Netherlands. You can see some of these sectors. Now, you know what is interesting? That a bulk of them are flowing or were flowing into those 3 states. There's a few of them actually, which have already decided in the states. What is interesting happening in India today is the other states which are really climbing up the ladder very fast and with very strong fire in the belly. So in fact, getting a location for yourselves today is a treat. These are your top 5 sectors where you have invested overseas. Just see how it stacks up. And red is India. Small one. It's not showing up here in the presentation. The small red ones, the orange or red, whatever you call it, is India in each of those sectors. ESDM is about 50% which is coming into India on that one. Typically on account of one big name from here, Philips. But the opportunity is now huge in each of those sectors. Logistics especially, currently in India, the logistics cost is anywhere between 16 to 17%. We are very high, global averages are 14. We are trying to bring that down to 12%. So in fact, the industrial corridors are now getting created. So Delhi to Calcutta, just to give you an idea, a new industrial corridor is coming up. Delhi is in the middle, Calcutta is in the far east. A truck leaving Delhi used to take about 11 to 13 days to get to Calcutta. The new corridor will be done by the end of next year. It will be done in 72 hours. Think of logistics. It's a huge investment opportunity sitting there.